A lot of resort areas there did suffer some damage with that very intense hurricane. It did weaken it a little bit with the land interaction, but now that Irma is clearly over open waters, we're seeing the pressure drop a little bit here Saturday evening, and that means the storm is strengthening, and we expect it to strengthen. The water's very warm there, so that is no surprise at all. It's also getting within range now of radar, and we're starting to see it move off toward the northwest, maybe a little jog to the west. So they go in a toroidal loop, sort of like this, and it's, if you ever plot, remember the old games you might have drawn with the sit-and spins, whatever they were, those spectrographs, I forget what they're called, but you know, sometimes you get the little squigglies going that way. But the general line will be to the west-northwest, and then it'll turn more to the northwest as we get into later tonight and tomorrow. One thing we're seeing, these feeder bands, some big-time thunderstorms and heavy downpours already affecting areas from I-75, from the Alligator Alley portion anyway, around Naples to Fort Lauderdale there. Seeing some very heavy rains. Miami's had the bands. We've seen the banding down also in the lower Keys, up toward around Key Largo, Matagorda. All those folks are seeing that. All right, so here's the latest at 6 o'clock now. One thing you're seeing, if you've been paying attention this afternoon, Hurricane Center is starting to issue advisories hourly. And really what they're doing, they're giving you position estimates every hour. And the bigger updates, they're still going to come 5 p.m., 11 p.m. But on the latest update anyway, the position is 23.4, 80.7. Pressure's at 933, and watch that tonight into Sunday morning, because the lower that gets, the stronger the storm is. But right now, it has weakened. Still, just because it's weakened doesn't mean it's not a tremendous threat. I can't stress enough so many threats with this storm. We've got 125-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 155, and 125-mile-an-hour winds would correspond to an EF3 tornado. Just keep that in mind. That's without the gust to 155. So keep that in mind. And an EF3 tornado, you know, that's 40, 50 miles wide. That's what's coming. That's one of the risks. We're not even talking about the flooding risk or the storm surge. But anyway, the track from the Hurricane Center, pretty tight there. It looks like it's headed toward Key West, maybe slightly east of Key West, and we expect landfall there. What are we talking, 6 a.m.-ish, give or take, Sunday morning. We're expecting the storm to strengthen from 130 to potentially 140. You know, if it got stronger than that over the warm waters, it wouldn't surprise me. And then making a second landfall north of Fort Myers, maybe Sarasota area, somewhere in that general vicinity. Notice the clock, upper right corner, 8:30 p.m. on Sunday. So it's going to have another 24 hours or so over generally open warm water to intensify. And we're talking very warm water. After that, it goes over Tampa still as a major hurricane overnight Sunday night into Monday morning. 115-mile-an-hour sustained winds in Tampa. A lot of people have evacuated Tampa. Our sister station, our Tegna WTSP television station, is evacuating their facility and getting out of there because the threat is that great. The storm will weaken, still potentially going to be a minimal hurricane Monday afternoon as it gets into southern Georgia just west of I-75. So this is the track. On that track, you know, I-75, Ocala, up to Stark. I mean, it could be a lot of devastation even just to the right of the track inland with those winds that they're going to see and the tornadic thunderstorms that often accompany landfalling hurricanes. It will weaken to a tropical storm, then a tropical depression somewhere either over Atlanta or Georgia, and then sort of fall apart there in western Tennessee as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday. And some of that moisture as we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, will be in our Washington neck of the woods in the form of some showers and thunderstorms. Look at some of these gusts here that we're looking at 6 o'clock Saturday evening, and we're going to track that as you would expect with the storm to the south. Those east and northeast winds kicking in with the storm coming off the Cuban coast. Gusts at Kennedy Space Center about 30, in West Palm 30. Naples to 47, but the bigger gusts are down south. Key West already gusting to 53 and Marathon to 62. So that's tropical storm conditions right there. Even the Marathon 39 would be a tropical storm. So Marathon already a tropical storm conditions, and it's deteriorating. And the waves are another thing we're going to have to worry about. If you recall in Katrina, and I posted a response earlier on Twitter, one thing Katrina did, even though it weakened to a Category 3, it's such a storm surge that some of the roadways on I-10 and Highway 90 from New Orleans east, Slidell over toward Biloxi, Gulfport, the pilings like this, and then they've got roadbeds on top. Well, the roadbeds, the waves, so all that was left was rows and rows and rows of pilings. I'm afraid that the highway going toward Key West may suffer a similar fate, because we're already looking at some of the wave heights offshore. That's 31 feet. That was about 55 miles or so, but I looked at some of even the 29, 30-foot waves. They're only about 30 miles offshore, so later tonight, boy, those seas are going to build tremendously down in the Florida Keys. And I talked about the water temps, right? The water temperatures, tremendously warm water. The green color represents 87. I'm just trying to give you a good stark difference from the warm to the very warm. But there are some water temperatures. I don't know if you see some of the red, and I'm going to just zoom in here. Some of the water temperatures around the Keys. I mean, see that purple color? I mean, this is really just bathwatery stuff. 91, 91. I mean 90. So when you're talking about tropical systems, they feed on warm water. The energy, the latent heat energy and evaporation, it all feeds the system. And when you've got very warm water, you've got a lot of latent heat energy transfer to feed the storm as it's likely to get stronger. Hey, let's talk storm potential. I don't want to talk storm potential, but this thing was nasty. I'm going to back this up. So this is a projected storm surge product that's relatively new in the last year or two from the Hurricane Center. And in a situation like this, it gives you some guidance how high the water's going to be. And if you're in one of those zones, maybe you decide to get the heck out of there. And because this is life-threatening stuff that we're talking about. So to show you the storm surge here, as we look in the purple area, we're talking 12 feet plus, in some cases 15, maybe up to 20 feet, worst case scenario. But even 12 feet is enough to knock buildings off their foundations, homes off their foundations. I mean, only the sturdiest of buildings will be able to survive this storm surge. Thankfully, south of Naples is a relatively sparse area. There are some developed areas, some vacation properties, resort properties. They're going to be in a world of hurt from this. There's no sugarcoating that. But farther up the coast, Fort Myers over toward Bradenton, Marco Island, yeah. I mean, that's just going to be a tremendously devastating storm surge there. Up into the Tampa Bay region, you'll notice Sarasota, we're 6 to 9. Southern part of Tampa Bay, that little inlet, yeah, that's only 3 to 6. But when you get into the northern part of the bay, and with the storm passing east, so the winds will be coming maybe more out of the south east on that as the storm passes, right? So it's going to start to drag water into this direction with the winds. And that's why you see that upper part of Tampa Bay with some of the red and even some of the purple colors. So we're talking 10 feet, 12 feet, maybe isolated numbers higher than that. So the Tampa Bay area on the north side is in a world of hurt also with this particular storm track. It's I don't know if this is worst case scenario for them, but pretty darn close. And then farther up the coast, and we're seeing, and this is a slight revision downward from last time I checked, but still a lot of the area from Crystal River up, 9-foot plus storm surges moving into that Big Bend area of Florida there with, you got to get over toward Apalachicola with lighter storm surge. In fact, the hurricane warnings, remember, go out to Apalachicola, but there are just some tremendously high storm surges here just west of Cross City, Crystal River area, and down in Tampa. And if you're wondering about Miami, by the way, this is what you would expect too with the model, right? The storm is going to track between Lake Okeechobee and the west coast when it comes inland. So with the storm tracking west of Lake Okeechobee, the winds are going to be going that way. So of course, it's going to push the water over toward the west end of Lake Okeechobee and out into the land areas that's hitting. Let's also take one last look down toward the Miami area with this, because Miami is still expecting, even though they're not going to get on the eye wall now, more than likely, still expecting 3, 4, 5 feet of water there. The higher water, which is enough to cause significant flooding, the highest water south of town, 6 to 9 in the Homestead area, and Homestead Raceway, for those race fans, might be underwater. And then we're looking at potentially a few areas north of Homestead close to 10 feet, but the real brunt, zooming out again, is going to be the southwest corner and west side of the state of Florida. So a real devastating blow. And even up in toward coastal Georgia now, we're looking at some projected storm surges, 3 to 4, 5 feet up there, really all the way up to Charleston, Brunswick, Jacksonville, and then you get down toward the Kennedy Space Center and Fort Pierce, and much less, 1 to 3 feet there. So what do we know as we close out this technical discussion on Irma? Irma is likely to strengthen before landfall. It's going over some very warm water, getting away from Cuba. It'll have an opportunity to strengthen, and the track from the hurricanes, or the forecast from the Hurricane Center, does strengthen it further before making landfall. Devastating storm surge, 10 feet, 15 feet in spots. I mean, that is going to do a number. Water like that can travel miles inland, miles inland. So if you're in one of those storm surge areas, yeah, that is, you're literally taking your life, potentially. Florida Keys, about 6, 8 o'clock Sunday morning is a Category 4. Tampa, 3 a.m. Monday morning, still a Category 3. Could have winds 115, gusting 140. and 8 to as much as 15 inches of rain. Somebody got more than that, it wouldn't surprise me. And spotty tornadoes could also do some damage. So lots of threat as Irma once again will be making landfall as we head into later or tomorrow morning into tomorrow night. And one last look on the Doppler here as that eye is moving a little bit west. Now boy, the farther west it goes, the more time it could spend over water. It'll spear. It's better for the east coast of Florida, worse for the west coast of Florida. And the feeder bands at this hour are affecting South Florida, and conditions will get worse through tonight. Hey, Topper Shutt is going to join me on WUSA 9 News at 11 p.m. We will have the very latest on Hurricane Irma. Any changes, of course, we'll bring them to you. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm at HBWX on Twitter, HBWX1 on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great night, everybody.